What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video, and we're back with the upload again. For the first video that I'll upload again, we're gonna be updating the tier list. All right, this is gonna be on the Yin patch. Okay, let's move on. It's just an introduction to kind of explain to you what a tier list is. It pretty much shows you what the meta is in the game, in the highest level, highest elo, in tournament play, in the general draft in which teams do. You can also use this for solo, duo, or trio queue, but if you're low elo, like let's say your mythical glory 600 points at most, then most likely people will just play whatever the hell they want. So as the meta changes, I'll try to update it as much as possible if I have time, and I'm sorry for not updating for so long. So you'll notice that some of the heroes portraits are not up to date, and they're the old portraits of the heroes. So let's move on, and this is the explanation of the color codes for the names on the tier list. For the color code, it actually shows you the difficulty of the hero. So if their names are on green, they're gonna be really easy to use. If their names are on yellow, then they're gonna be kind of iffy, kind of a little bit harder to master. And if their names are on red, then they're the hardest heroes to master, right? And for the letter coding, S tier is gonna be like the highest tier must bans first pick heroes. A tier is pretty much often picked in the general draft. B tier is pretty much like heroes that you could use to counter pick really often picked heroes. Hopefully that makes sense. And then C tier is like borderline not even meta anymore. And then D tier don't even, like Moonton needs to rework D tier. I don't even know if I have a D tier anymore. I think I deleted it. But yeah, let's move on. Before we move on to the jungler tier list though, just take note that this is my opinion. So if you have a problem, if you don't agree with me, that's okay. Just comment down below if you don't, and share your opinion on the comment below. And if I miss any junglers in the tier list or in any tier list at all, please let me know in the comment section below. I am only human after all, and I just did it like super quickly and updated it as quickly as possible this morning. So hopefully I got everybody in their specific tier list. All right, so the jungle tier list, let's start with Paquito and Lancelot. These two junglers will be the most contested heroes in the current meta right now. So sometimes teams will do like let's say your first pick, and then the opposing team will ban Lancelot or Paquito. You take the other. All right, if you have the opportunity, you take the other, as long as you don't have other heroes that counter that specific hero. So if that doesn't make sense, let's say the other team ban Lancelot but Paquito is open, you better hope that Phoveus is banned, Glue is banned, and Lily is banned, so you could first pick Paquito. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, and another note, by the way, before we move on again, sorry, is the tier list will be posted on the description below. It's gonna be a Google Slides link, so if you want to check it out yourself, click that link on the description below. All right, moving to the A tier list for the jungler tier list. It's gonna be Fanny with the recent patch on her regen whenever she recalls, and she also she doesn't waste as much energy when she has successful cables. So if you're really good with Fanny, she's actually really good. And if there's not a lot of disruption on her cables, like let's say Hoopra, you have not a lot of crowd control like Cho, then Fanny is actually a really good pick. Weiss is still pretty decent, Hayabusa is still decent, Roger is still pretty good. Karina, people used to do tank Karina, but now people do hybrid Karina, so they do like Calamity Reaper, Holy Crystal, and then they do tanky build afterwards. And some people do some other stuff, but I can't really say all the specific builds that Karina users will do. But what I often see with Karina players right now are it's a hybrid Karina. It's not full tank, it's most likely like damage / tanky Karina. So Ling is still pretty decent. Alris is like a close S tier, but the reason why he's in A tier is because he's just kind of hard to pick in the current meta. If you have Eve open, if you have Lilia open, Alris is really hard to draft, because if he gets super slowed, he can get microed pretty easily. All right, we have Barats on A tier with Aldous. So the reason why I put this on A tier is pretty much because of, if you execute these heroes correctly, like Blacklist will do, they are very, very scary to go against. All right, Barats and Aldous. That's the reason why they're in A tier. But not a lot of people could execute them correctly, and not a lot of people draft Barats jungler and Aldous jungler correctly. You need to have the right enablers to be able to use these junglers. Helkert got a recent buff, I believe, where his second skill is now considered a basic attack, so they rush Demon Hunter's sword for him. Bauman is still pretty decent. Sun is also decent. Actually, these two are like a close B tier. All right, these two right here, close B tier, honestly. So, but I decided to put them on A tier because it was full. It was pretty much full, so I couldn't put any more in this row. Now let's move on to the B tier. Baxia is still okay. Baxia Jungler is still okay. Really tanky. The only problem with Baxia Jungler is most likely not a lot of people know how to draft around him. People don't know what to put on the gold lane and what to put on XP lane once they have a Baxia Jungler. They sometimes don't have enough damage and stuff like that. So he's just hard to draft all around. But if your team specializes on that, like for example what Origin Esports did in the recent Cebol qualifiers or JNA Esports before, then Baxia is actually just okay. Saber, you could use him to counter Fanny. That's pretty much the only reason why you would use the Saber. Sylvana is still okay. Harley's still okay. The only reason why Harley is in B tier is his late game, and his late game is pretty weak, and his what's it called? He is a single target hero in most cases, alright? So he's like a one and done hero. Once he goes in, he puts out all his combo, and he's pretty much done after that, alright? So we have Alpha, who's also pretty decent. Alucard, if you put like, I've seen a team where they do Alucard and then they do a lot of sustain. You could do that. You need to have the right enablers to play the Alucard jungle. Bane, Benedetta jungler still decent. Granger, like I didn't put a lot of marksmans in this tier list because with the not too long ago patch where they made marksmen not do as much damage as other as assassins fighters in the jungle. They do they do less damage. There you go. They do less damage on the jungle buffs and jungle minions in general. So that's why I don't put a lot of marksmen. You're only gonna see YSS Roger, who's considered an assassin, by the way, primary assassin. This guy is like considered a fighter. Granger's like, I guess Granger and Kimmy are the only ones considered marksmen technically, but Kimmy's considered semi-mage. It's kind of weird, but yeah, Granger is the most marksman natural jungler that you could probably use, but he's still not that good. All right, Harith, I've seen some people do Harith jungle, but he's only okay. Aemon used to be very broken, but until the recent nerf on him, he's not as good anymore. He could be a close A tier, honestly. He could be a close A tier between Bauman's Son and Aemon, so you could switch that around pretty much. You could argue that. For C tier, we have Hanzo. Gushan is pretty much just a Harley, but harder to execute because he's harder to use. He's like a one and done hero. Once you throw your combo, you're kind of screwed if you mess it up. Zilong is C tier, Freya's C tier, Hylos and Uranus are also C tier. Why is Hylos and Uranus C tier compared to Baxia, who's B tier, right? If you're asking, since they're all tanks. Well, Baxia actually has a lot of survivability and has a lot of mobility, whereas Uranus, like even if you crowd control Baxia, he's still super tanky. If you get countered by, let's say, if you play Hylos and Uranus, you can get countered by Chu, Kari, and stuff like that, to melt him down pretty much. It's hard to explain. Baxia could ulti out and sustain and buy time a lot, whereas Hylos and Uranus can't do the same. So that's why they're in different tiers. Hopefully that makes sense. But in my head, there's just, there's a difference between these three tanks, and that's why I put Baxia on B tier. Alright, let's move on to the mid lane tier list. We have on S tier, Kagura, Lilia, and Valentina. Alright, the most broken hero here is probably Valentina. You're almost never gonna get Valentina in drafting. So she's super broken. Lilia was a close A tier, to be honest. For me, was a really close A tier, but she's also a hero that is very contested right now in the draft. Kagura is very prioritized by teams right now because Edith became a thing, right? And Chu became, even more of a meta in the current patch. So the reason why Kagura is in S tier is because she has the free Purify with her umbrella. So that's why she's in S tier. She's really prioritized right now. Selena as a mid laner, right? You're gonna see Selena again later as on the roamer tier list, which is gonna be a different tier list. As a mid laner, position 4, she is gonna be in an A tier, alright? Kadira is gonna be A tier, Loi is gonna be A tier, Eudora, Farsa, Lunox, Eve used to be an S tier, by the way. Eve used to be an S tier. But with the recent changes that they did, with her cooldown, she is gonna go on the A tier only. Farsa also used to be S tier, by the way, when on the last update that I did on my tier list, but she goes down on A tier because of her cooldown as well. Sicilian is actually a very close S tier, guys. As long as there are no gap closers, like for example, Hayabusa, Yuzhong, Ling, Fanny, that you're against, Sicilian is super strong. So Sicilian is actually a really close S tier, really close. Alright, so we have Matilda Pulse 4. You're gonna see Matilda again later in the roamer tier list. As a position 4, I don't see her as strong as she is as a roamer. Alright, so if you guys are wondering why is Claude and Clint on the mid lane tier list, well, we've scrimmed some people that have done mid lane marksmans, position 4 marksmans, and they've done Claude and Clint. The reason for this is because some teams really focus on ganking gold lane, where gold laners they die over and over again since they're so squishy. But in mid lane, nobody really ganks the mid lane as much, if you notice, right? If you notice the Mobile Legends meta, not a lot of people or not a lot of teams will gank the mid lane. They kind of forget about the mid lane. They pretty much, the only thing that happens in mid lane in most teams is they clear it and then they gank. That's pretty much it. So the reason why people or teams use Claude and Clint is because marksmans will get free farm at mid as long as they don't get ganked. Free farm at mid because they just clear, run away, clear, run away and gank. You know what I mean? So that's why sometimes teams will do Claude and Clint at mid lane. So hopefully that makes sense. So Claude and Clint are the two viable marksmen that you could do that with. For B tier, we have Vale, Chang'e, Harley, Kaja, Gord, Nana, Faramis. So the only reason why Faramis went from C tier to B tier is because Glue is like hard meta right now, and Faramis is a hard counter to Glue. But in my opinion, if I force a team to pick Faramis only because of a Glue, it's just not worth it for me. So he's gonna stay in B tier. Cyclops is in B tier, Odette is in B tier, Bane is gonna be in B tier as well. For T tier, we have Zaz, mobility super bad. Wave clear is not that good. Aurora, mobility super bad. Vexana, mobility super bad. And the only reason why Valir would be on C tier is because his wave clear is super bad as a position 4. Alright, if you notice, these guys, they actually have pretty decent wave clear, and they have really good mobility. They have this guy, this hero has a lot of dash. Lilia has a lot of survivability, plus she has really high wave clear, you know what I mean? Loi has pretty decent wave clear, Kadita has decent wave clear. Selena has pretty bad wave clear, but she has really good mobility and, how do you say this? Really good vision. How do you say it? Yeah, vision. She gives you good vision because of her traps. Eudora has decent wave clear, you know, so hopefully that you get my point. So that's why Valir is in C tier. His wave clear is just super bad, his mobility is not that good, and his ulti is pretty much just like a Purify with longer range and to reset your first game. So moving on to the XP lane tier list. So we have on S tier, we have Edith, who is sometimes banned, often banned actually, and really prioritized as well in the current draft, Esmeralda and Blue. But I would say that Blue would probably be the most broken XP lane right now in the game. Even if you get countered by, let's say, Promise, Blue is still pretty good as long as you use them correctly. Alright, there is a way for people to use Blue even with a Faramis on the other team, and you could still be super effective. Alright, so moving on to the A tier list, we have Uranus, Yuzhong, Dyrith. So if you don't know, Dyrith is actually used to counter Esme, and even Uranus or even a Hylos, or yeah, so he can pretty much melt because he has extra physical pen or armor penetration. So that's why Dyrith will be in A tier. And yeah, that's probably the only reason why. Since Esme is such a contested hero right now in the meta, this is why Dyrus is in A tier. He used to be on B tier or C tier, I believe. But yeah, he moved up a lot. Benedetta is decent as long as there is no Phobius. But in most cases, Benedetta is actually a really close B tier, in my opinion. Really close B tier. Famus, I don't really understand. He has really good early game, but his mid game to late game kind of just falls off pretty hard. So that's why he's also a close B tier. The only reason why they're not in B tier is because it's the row is full. So they're a close B tier actually, these two. Baksha is a close B tier as well, so the people use him to counter the Esmeralda. Pretty much, that's the only reason why. Phoveus is a close S tier, but in my opinion, he's only A tier because there are a lot of ways to counter Phoveus. The only hard part is most players really prefer heroes with high mobility and that are agile. So, like for example, Paquito and Lancelot are meta right now. So in most cases, teams will ban Phoveus, right? So they don't have to worry about having a difficult time in the draft. Ruby's actually pretty decent on XP lane. The only reason why I put Ruby here is she's decent in XP lane, but most teams will use her on the as a roamer. She's better as a tank. People would put her on the XP lane just solely to probably deny pick another team so that the other team cannot get Ruby in most cases, or if they're trying to look for more crowd control. Like let's say an enemy team third pick Fanny, and then you don't have crowd control on your team, Ruby would probably get picked just to fill in that gap. Hylos is also a hero that could counter Esmeralda or Phoveus, so that's why these guys are being used, right? Chu on the XP lane is built as a tank, but you need to draft correctly if you want to use Chu XP lane, right? So the reason why people or teams use Chu XP lane is because of his crowd control, and what people would do is they would put Edith on the roamer role and then Chu on the XP role, and they'd have two hard crowd control where they could just crowd control chain or crowd control lock the enemy team, a specific target, and that's gonna be an instant pickoff. Pretty much, it's like a pickoff team composition. Paquito's still pretty good on A tier. As for B tier, we have Hilda, Barat, Masha, Jawhead, Alpha, Gatot, Xborg, Lapu, Khalid, Bauman, Carmilla. I'm not really gonna explain any of these. Hopefully they're reasonable for you guys. C tier, we have Argus, Gwyn, Aldous, Mardis, Badang, Leomord, Minstathar, Sun, Freya, Belric, and Teresa. I'm not gonna explain any of these as well. Hopefully they're reasonable as well for you guys. And let's move on. Alright, now moving on to the goal lane. We have Wan, Clint, and Brody. So Wan is really good as long as there's no like long range poke. Like for example, Farsa. If you're against a Farsa position 4 mid lane, or if you're against an Eve, or if you're against a Sicilian, Wan is kind of hard to use. So what most teams would do is they would just try to ban those heroes. They try to avoid Yu Zhang as well, by the way. So pretty much gap closers. They try to avoid Fanny. You don't want to play Wan if you're against a Fanny. So yeah, it really depends on the draft, but she is very, very strong in the current meta if drafted correctly. Clint and Brody are pretty much the most contested marksmen in the meta right now, so that's why they're gonna go in the S tier, right? They're kind of like a 50-50. They always go in lane. These guys are like rivals in lane, pretty much. For A tier, we have Kagura. Not a lot of teams will play mage gold lane, but some will do. If they really have to adjust to the draft, some will do that. So Kagura is an A tier. Beatrix got nerfed lately, so used to be an S tier, but after the recent nerf with her basic attack, she's gonna go on A tier. She's still decent. Popol and Koopa is actually a really close S tier. Really close S tier. Probably the only problem with Popol would probably be he's single target. That's it. He's single target. That's pretty much it. And he's really squishy in a way. Yeah, he's pretty squishy. And he barely has any mobility. He has pretty good sustain though with a shield on his second skill. Kimmy is going to be an A tier, Cards A tier, Lunox, Farsa, Hearth, Flood, Alice, and Lilia are going to be an A tier as well. If you have any questions, comment down below why I put them there if I didn't explain any of it in the video. For B tier, we have Esmeralda. Some people still do Esmeralda. I kind of deleted a lot of fighters, like for example, Cho, like on the tier list that I did before, Chu was actually on the gold lane tier list. But in the current meta, a lot of people are only using Chu for the XP and roamer role. So I took off Chu on the gold lane tier list. Hopefully that's okay for you guys. We have Bruno, Zaz, Irithel. Bruno's actually a close A tier, by the way, but the row was full. So really close A tier. Really close A tier. Irithel, technically Irithel in laning, Irithel in laning counters 1-1, but that doesn't mean Irithel is stronger than 1-1, right? In the general draft, because she barely has any mobility, she's really squishy, and she scales super slow. Although 1-1 scales slow, she has a lot of survivability, she has a lot of mobility, and she could outplay. She has really good outplay potential, unlike Irithel, right? Irithel could be killed pretty easily. Moskov is going to be in B tier, Leomard in B tier, Mia is going to be in B tier, Granger B tier, Cyclops B tier, Chang'e B tier. And for C tier, hopefully this makes sense. Lilia, Leslie, Zilong, Hanabi. I don't want to explain any of those. Hopefully that is understandable for you guys. Let's move on. And this is going to be the last tier list for the video, guys. So it's going to be Cho, like I said earlier, on the roamer tier list. The reason why Cho is very good right now is because Edith became a thing. So the way teams counter Edith is they pick Cho, because he has the immune, and pretty much the only tank or the only roamer that could go against Edith comfortably is Cho, because he has the immune. That's pretty much it. Even Ruby has a hard time going against Edith. Alright, so now people will do Selena roamer, because once Selena gets level 2, gets the roaming item, she's pretty much good to go. You could do like a Selena roamer and then like a True +4. Some people do that, or a Ruby +4, so they could get level 4 quickly. On the turtle fight, they have level 4, while Selena is technically level 4 at level 2, if you know what I mean, because she doesn't have a specific ulti. She just changes forms. On A tier, we have Estes, of course, the Blacklist special. We have Mathilda still pretty good. Kufra, Lolita used to be in B tier, but since marksmans are a thing now, Lolita's gonna be in A tier, and her stuns, she's also used to crowd control, stun, and lock heroes as well. Kind of like a Cho, right? Kind of like a Cho, but she has less mobility, in my opinion. Okay, so you could actually combo her with Kagura. Lolita Kagura is a very good combo. You could burst someone down pretty quickly. Blue is a really close B tier in the roamer tier list. Really close B tier, because in my opinion, his mobility is not that good, and his wave clear is not that good as well. Plus, it's hard to playmate with Blue roamer. Right, so that's the only reason why he's a close B tier in my opinion. Rafaela is gonna stay in A tier. Angela could be a close B tier in my opinion. The only reason why you would use Angela is if you have, like, let's say Ling, Yu Zhong on your team. So like if you have good synergy on your draft, Angela could be really hard to go against. Jawhead is A tier. The only reason why you would pick Jawhead right now, I would think, is if you're against a Kufra. Alright, so most tanks will prefer Jawhead against a Kufra. Grok is an A tier. He's actually a close B tier, but there are some things that I've seen on TikTok and that my players do. Usually what they do is they block the minions, and in the XP lane or gold lane, I'm not sure, but one of those lanes you can pick one. If you do it on the XP lane, it doesn't matter which lane actually. Your minions will go to the river and it goes to their second tier tower, which is kind of stupid and it's kind of unexpected, but a lot of people do it now, so hopefully if you're against a Grok, watch out for that, right? Just go on the river and see if he's gonna wall it down. Natalia is actually a close S tier. It really depends on the draft. The only reason why Natalia would be an A tier is because she is hard to play in the later stages of the game, where the teams are kind of like sticking together. When they stick together, it's hard to pick off, with Natalia. So that's the only reason why she's an A tier. B tier, we have Atlas, Johnson, Akai. The reason why Akai is here is if you need crowd control for a Fanny, to counter Fanny, Akai is there. Florine, I'm not a big fan of Florine, so B tier. Minotaur got a recent buff, but he's still not good enough. For Diggy, I'm actually kind of confused, because since the meta, if you've been noticing with what my explanation in the video, the meta is like a crowd control meta in a way, right? You have Edith, you have Chu, Ruby. Why not pick Diggy? I'm not really sure why not a lot of teams pick Diggy. I guess they just don't like the way he's played. They don't like playing him. He's boring. I don't know, but he's a really close A tier for me, right? He's a really close A tier for me. Franco, you would probably use Franco to have crowd control for Fanny as well. So that's the only reason why you would use Franco, for me at least. Kaja as well, same reason as Franco and Akai. Tigreal is used in low elo a lot because they mess around with the with the buff. They reset the buff over and over again with Tig, so that's why he's in B tier. Hylos is B tier. He doesn't have a lot of playmaking capabilities. That's why he's in B tier. Sylvana is still pretty okay. That's why she is in B tier. For C tier, we have Belric, Barat, Mincy, Gatot, Yin. Oh yeah, if you notice, Yin is on my roamer tier list only. I didn't include him on the gold lane. I didn't include him on jungle. I didn't include him on XP as well. Well, the only Yin that we'd face in scrims is the tank Yin, but he didn't do good. It felt like he was only there to ulti the jungler, so that the enemy jungler can't retribution the objective. That's pretty much it. That's what he's used for. I think it's kind of cheesy. It's pretty much a cheese strat. It is kind of annoying. It could work. I guess he's a close B tier, but if you want to try it out, you can try in on the roaming role. Hilda's gonna be in C tier, a close B tier as well. Carmilla is gonna be in B tier, and Baksha's on B tier. Alright, so that's it for the tier list, guys. Again, the Google slide link will be in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. Put down your comments below if I miss anything, if I miss any heroes on a specific tier list, and if you have other opinions on the tier list, feel free to share it down below, and I'll take a look at it and see what I can reply to you. All right. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're gonna try to upload again. All right. I keep going back and forth. It's like an on and off thing on my uploads. Hopefully, it's a consistent thing in 2022 now. So yeah, let's build our YouTube channel again, and hopefully you guys stay tuned. Hit the notification bell, and I'm out. Peace.